lumps are big and they are turning, disintegrating under the tool of the farmhand, that according to the ancient custom, the ground of the cultivation works with its hands. The nurse prepares with tidiness the medication on the impeccable salver. It looks alternately at the recipes in the bottles, from which it extracts the matter indicated for every patient. The bank is stuffed with the anxious people, with complaints and with hurried movements. The messenger is part of an extensive line in the box 3 destined to the reception of the payment of the taxes. Between the cell and the chapel crosses the cloister. Across the steamy glasses, the monk contemplates small roses, rubies and shoot and the emerald green one of the humid foliage. In the playtime, the children open its energy playing unrecognizable games and saturate the ambience of noises and screams. The teacher corrects the notebooks and accommodates the pencils on having happened for the desks. 5 brief descriptions that they precede are contemporary. They pass in our time and its protagonists practice Jesus' prayer. They are real situations of friends who have found in the prayer of Jesus' name, a space of calmness in the middle of the thunderstorm. This way of praying has turned to them into a refuge that shelters them of the agitations of the daily world. They protect them from the gales that come about and of the originated ones from their own mind. The world can become hostile if we are penetrated by the violence, the competitiveness, the greed, the culture of the appearance that seems to be imposed on that of the being. Our mind can be handling the values of the way in which he lives and end turned into enemy, and source of worry derived from the endless avidity. Jesus' prayer is a refuge because it offers peace to the soul, but it does not generate inertia. On the contrary, it activates the action transformadora. The assiduous practitioner becomes stronger and still in the middle of the world. It finds in itself the sufficient distance between the stimuli and the reaction. It spread this one interior, previously to the answer that happens to the events, to he allows to act with deliberation, looking for the coherence between its conduct and the message of the gospel. The prayer of Jesus' name, known also like the prayer of the heart, is a particular vocation, a desire of deep unification of the soul, and in general, it goes so far. Dear friends and friends of Jesus' prayer, I begin my epistolary relation with your treating on an incessant one to occur, a constant dialogue, a permanent oscillation. It is our vagabond mind that moves like fluff taken by the wind. It is necessary to realize the state of our mind, of what way handles us, how slaves we are of its swaying. It happens that in her there reflects the movement of the humors of the body. To every digestive process, to the respiratory rhythm, to the state of the organs, to every muscular tension, it corresponds, immediately and without us a noticiemos, a mental agitation. This is what we usually call thoughts. But more necessary it would be to speak about digressions, because the thought is something tidy and fruit of the intention. An acute observation shows us that judicious thoughts are scarce and that in general they are formed based on the anxieties that bind us to various appetites. The prayer of Jesus is a long and deep path that nevertheless does not take long to show its effects. But for this it is necessary to have clear the first objective. Replace the digression with the prayer. Even if it does not seem like that, the permanent background rumor that constitutes the internal dialogues can be silenced in a short time, through the repetition of the holy name of Jesus Christ. After prayer has become a mental habit, it will be time for new stages of deepening, adoration, silence and contemplation. But to acquire this holy custom it is necessary to do the inner act of renouncing mental charlatanism. The silence of the mouth is useful as long as it results from mental silence. Otherwise, whoever is silent on the outside screams inside. There are those who believe that the prayer of Jesus, also called prayer of the heart, is a method as regards its meaning of way, and it is not wrong to think so. But those who practice it with assiduity and for a long time have convinced themselves that it is much more. It is a way of living in the presence of the Lord and comes to radically change the life of the practitioner. Whoever gets into it cannot go back. It is necessary to reflect before adopting it for oneself, since it produces an increase of one's conscience, in such a way that the knowledge of being small, in extreme need of divine help and prey to innumerable weaknesses, becomes evident. From the point of view of the psyche, who embraces this prayer has to go behavior in order to detect those aspects of life where the immoderate manifests itself, which is outside the center, what does not fit what Christ would do. This is a work of personal reflection, but it can be very useful to talk in groups, in order to learn from each other. Just as in the previous letter we referred to the need to be willing to renounce one's own divagatory thoughts, today we emphasize the need to be ready to take control of one's own body, to make it an effective instrument of spiritual growth. This can take time and will not be easy, but without the attitude of iron determination to carry it forward, it will not be achieved. It is very convenient that these things are understood calmly and deeply. An ascesis will not be properly initiated and much less will it be sustained unless there is previously a complete understanding of its spiritual need. Whoever feels called to this type of prayer should know that in order to progress he will have to give the body the norm of what is necessary, no more. And to the mind, the Jesus prayer, no more. Little by little prayer begins to transform us. It becomes continuous and interrupted. It will emerge in what is seen, in the breathe, in the sense. It reveals itself as a fund of bliss that updates the gospel in us. While this is being modeled, the inner heart begins to be found, a carnal and spiritual dwelling where Christ lives in the fullness of grace. I greet you invoking Jesus Christ, source of true peace. In addition to the readings mentioned above, we recommend. Dear friends of the Jesus, I hope you are well, united in the Spirit and strengthened in the habit of repeating the holy name. Previously we saw the need to replace wandering by prayer, unifying the mind around this stable center. Also, the urgency to put the body at the service of spiritual growth if it is intended to move towards contemplation. To become owners of the body and the mind, given tools to rise to God and from this world. I would like to tell you today, briefly, about a particular way of doing things. It is a way of approaching the tasks that everyday life brings us. A position that is assumed, that also, by becoming habit, transforms us. This way of being in action, is prayer and allows the serene experience of external events. You stop craving this or that situation because you find the same satisfaction at all times. This way of acting is characterized by the utmost attention that puts into it who executes it. He, conscious of the presence of God in everything and in everything, acts as the officiant in the liturgy. With reverence, concentrated, putting the best of himself. In him we live, we move and we exist. Acts 17:28. Conscious of what the apostle says, it is necessary to abandon the belief that that other moment is more important than the one in which we find ourselves. Stop assessing based on expectations. Assume that the whole life is a mystery through which God teaches us and calls us into his presence. Those evaluations that we make based on our illusions and concerns are not supported. It is as important this sight as the other as the journey between them. Life is a continuous displacement and we are always moving in your house. There is a way of putting ourselves mentally and corporately that facilitates the perception of grace acting in us and what surrounds us. It is a way without haste, that arranges in an orderly manner the necessary elements for the action that is going to be carried out, that develops each step with the same intensity. It is perceived as a harmonic doing. It is achieved by having confidence that this task before me is part of what the Lord asks me to do in this life, and confidence that by putting my necessary effort he will bring things to fruition. It is a doing from the Spirit, using the body and the mind according to the service function for which they were created. It is an action from within and not alienated on the outside.